Okay, I don't have my mallet. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is just an informative meeting with John Gates. He's with the Amarillo Environmental Bi-County Health Department. And he is here just to answer questions from anybody that has any concerns. There's a couple of myths floating around, so he can answer all your questions, and so y'all just feel free after he talks a little bit, y'all have questions. Okay?
So obviously, my name's John Gates. I know most of y'all have seen your faces before. I've been working with y'all for over 20 years through the health department. I've been with the city 35 years. But we have had some historic rains in our area. Your village council has contacted Randall County, and Randall County, through Judge Christy Dyer, has requested state assistance to try to mitigate some of the issues that we have in our jurisdiction. So the City of Amarillo is the permitting and inspection department for the Amarillo Area Public Health District. We treat for mosquitoes, vectors, within the City of Amarillo because we actually have funding through our citizens for that vector control. We do not have any type of formal program set up to come out into your jurisdiction to do any vector control. There's no funds, well, your mayor attended a meeting yesterday with Judge Christy Dyer, and so the City of Amarillo offered a mutual aid agreement, which your mayor signed, that would allow the City of Amarillo to come in here and to do some preemptive vector control. The state of Texas, about 8 days ago, sent a crew into our jurisdiction, and they started putting out traps, mosquito traps. Lake Tanglewood, Timber Creek, Palisades, Gordon Cummings Road, west of Canyon, and there's about 30 traps scattered all over Randall County. The problem was that we found active pools, mosquito pools, with verified West Nile virus in the mosquito pool. That means the mosquitoes had bitten birds that were carrying the virus, and it has processed through their body, and so the chances of them then biting a human and transmitting West Nile virus is elevated. So we wanted to do something, one, to prevent any human cases of West Nile virus. We also found another type of encephalitis called St. Louis encephalitis. So we have positive pools, not positive cases of humans, but positive pools of mosquitoes. And so we're trying to put a kill to those mosquito pools so they don't transmit the disease. We were able to come in this morning. We got in here earlier, around 4 a.m. Everybody was dark, nobody was awake, things of that nature, hopefully. But anyway, we came in with our ULV foggers. So these are ultra low volume electric foggers, and they take and they atomize a chemical and we spray it out. And so if you think about the pen, a ballpoint pen, just the head of the pen, the droplets that we're making are smaller than that pinhead. And they're floating into a fog, and the wind makes it just drift a little bit, okay? So we generally use about a 100-foot drift area, but we drove your area and were able to adulticide Palisades between the hours of 4 a.m. and 6, and then we were out of here. Nothing else happened after 6 a.m. for adulticiding. Then we did come back in today with 2 crews to larvicide. So if you imagine when you're trying to kill an adult mosquito, you're trying to get a dot of pesticide to land on that mosquito or land on a leaf, and then the mosquito lands on it, and that's how they get killed. The larvae, if we can catch the larvae before they come off as adults, we generally have about a 95 to 99% efficacy rate. We can kill them in the water easy. So we had 2 crews in here today, and we can say that we have adulticided and larvicided Palisades. Okay? So we believe that that's going to give y'all some protection over this holiday weekend. And then we will come back out early next week. And if we have to do another round, we'll do another round. But this historic flooding has brought up multiple things. And so we also want to raise awareness. We have a possible case of cholera. So cholera is a waterborne disease, and it's affected from contaminated water. So the flood waters from the creek, contaminated with fecal matter, septic system that got overflowed, etc. There's a lot of different things. The manure from all the cattle areas, all that going in, that increases the loading, the organic loading of the water. And if that gets down into your water well, then your water well is contaminated and there's a possibility of transmission. So what we have today is we brought a quantity of water sample bottles, and we brought information on the proper method to disinfect your water well. So this is normal. There's a lot of times we do it. I'm talking to Jerry. He's done it numerous times for his water well. Places that have public water supplies don't have to usually worry about this because there's a chlorine residual left in the water. But when you have a private water well, you do not have any chlorine in your water. And so if something gets in there, there's nothing to kill it. So we have pamphlets that talk about if your water well was overrun by floodwaters, you need to cease operation of your water well until you can get it disinfected. Okay? The pamphlets talk about the process, and then we have the bottles that you can, once you, if you feel like you want to get your water tested before you treat it, great. You can fill the bottle, take it to the City of Amarillo Water Lab. So that's located just south of the City of Amarillo dog facility, dog shelter there on Ross Osage. It's the south building of the wastewater or the water treatment plant there on Osage. There's a minimal fee for the analysis of the water. They are an accredited state lab for testing bacterial quality of water. They check for E. coli and they check for coliform. Coliform is an indicator bacteria. It's found in the digestive tracts of all mammals. If they find that, then they will test for E. coli. But since there is a possible case of cholera in your general area, we wanted to make sure that we got this information to you so that you could be proactive and protect yourself and your families. So your council for the village welcomed all the information that Judge Dyer had. She has been very active trying to get the state of Texas to help out our jurisdiction under the disaster declarations. And we're trying to get some assistance, but since there's no formal vector control program in the Palisades or in Randall County, they're limited on wanting to come in. They have these rules and regulations. You're supposed to be spending like 40 cents per capita on a vector program before they'll come in and give you any assistance. When you don't have a program, how can you can't prove that? So, but we're trying to get some assistance that way. But the City of Amarillo is going through the mutual aid agreement that was signed, and we were able to come in here and take care of this. We will continue covering as best we can. But as we told Mayor Lane, if something breaks out in Amarillo, we're going to have to pull off and go back into Amarillo. At that time, y'all may have to look at some other means of mosquito control. But right now, we're able to handle it. We've been able to come in, do the adulticide this morning, and then come in today and do the larvicide. So I know there's a lot of concern about bees, and bees are so important for our human existence. If we don't have our pollinators, we're in trouble. Bees sleep at night, just like we do, which is great. They stay in their hives. and the stuff that we spray will not kill the bees in the hive. Okay, now if there's a random bee out and he got hit by the fog, yes, it could kill him. But since bees they sleep at night, they're in their hives, we do not spray adulticide during the day because of the bees. Okay? There's specific guidelines. The temperature has to be 80 degrees and falling. Does that happen at 12 o'clock at noon? No, there's no way. The wind speed has to be 15 miles or less. Because if the wind's too high, then you get too much drift. So we came in, we had a shot this morning. It was nice and calm here in the canyon. We were able to get the adulticide done. Came back in during the day, treated the larvicide, I don't know if anybody's ever seen a wiggler or a mosquito larva. I can actually have some pictures on my phone what they look like. But if you've got a little kiddie pool that your dog plays in, a bird bath, some old 5-gallon buckets, some tires, things of that nature, anything that's going to capture rainwater, the idea there is to get rid of it. You need to dip or toss that water every 2 to 3 days at a minimum. Otherwise, you're going to be breeding your own mosquitoes. So we've done everything we could from a public health standpoint to come in and protect your community. We are asking your help in protecting your property by getting rid of the standing water. Obviously, mosquitoes like dust to dawn. They like biting. They're very aggressive in the evening times and early mornings. And they like our scent. Our bodies put off carbon dioxide, and guess what draws mosquitoes? Carbon dioxide. So wear long clothes. If you're going to be out during late evening, wear a long sleeve shirt. Put some DEET or some kind of mosquito repellent on. Just protect yourself is the main thing. So, is there any questions about what we were able to do today and get the village treated? Yes, ma'am.
How does rain that may come in the next few days, how does that affect what you just did? Is it affected at all?
No, so the residual of this chemical is very limited. So the fog that we put out actually floated through the air, and it had to come in contact with the adult mosquitoes. And that's what we were trying to do, is kill the adult mosquitoes that had tested positive for West Nile virus, so they could not transmit the disease. So the rain will, if there is any on foliage or something like that left over, we call that a barrier treatment. Yes, the rainwater can wash that off, but then it's going to dilute it and it's not going to be an issue. Does that answer the question? Yes, ma'am.
Several years ago, my husband poured bleach and treated our well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we've had a new pump since then. So, is that any good anymore? Or just,
So, yes, ma'am.
is that good for treating our water?
Yes, ma'am, and that's what my pamphlets will tell you. That's what we want you to use is regular household bleach. Generally, what you're going to want to do with your water well is you're going to want you to get you a good clean water bucket, 5-gallon bucket, fill it up with water, and then you're going to want to turn the power off to your well. You're going to want to open up the access for your water well, and you're going to want to pour 2 to 3 gallons of regular household bleach down that wellhead. Then you're going to want to take that clean 5-gallon bucket of water and pour it in after that. That way it rinses off any piping or any equipment that is going to catch that bleach going down. Then you're going to need to hook everything back up, turn your power back on, and go to the closest hydrant and open the water and let it run until you smell the bleach. Then you shut that off and go to the next hydrant. And you go to all the different hydrants on the outside of your property and then inside the house so that the bleach is everywhere in your distribution system. Once it's in your distribution system, it needs to stay for at least 8 hours. And that chlorine water in the piping will disinfect anything that's in your distribution system. Then you have to flush your system. Otherwise, you're going to be ingesting chlorine. So generally, it's going to take anywhere from 4 to 12 hours flushing. We recommend getting a couple of sprinkler systems, yard sprinklers, and put them out in the yard, and sprinkle your yard, etc. Try to use the water. You don't want to just run everything to where it goes to your septic, because as we all know, bleach kills the good bacteria in the septic tank, and we don't want to cause issues with that. So instead of overloading your septic trying to flush your water well, please use some type of exterior lawn sprinkler, etc. Okay? And then once that's done and it's flushed, then you can obtain a water sample bottle. You can take it to the City of Amarillo's lab, and they will do an analysis. There is a minimal fee, and then they will get you those instructions back. Generally, what they're going to want you to do is to take the sample from your kitchen faucet. There's a little aerator, a little screened area. You can unscrew that from your faucet, and you can take some chlorine or some alcohol swabs or a little cup of alcohol and clean that nozzle so that there's no bacteria from our hands or in that sample. Let the water run for a couple of minutes. Then you uncap the bottle, unscrew it. Inside the bottle, you'll see a little white powder in the bottom, and that is sodium thiosulfate. What that does is that counteracts any chlorine in the water. So if you had, for some reason, chlorine in there, up to 10 parts per million, it'll get rid of the chlorine for the sample. You collect the sample, seal it up tight, put it in a little ice chest, and drive it to the water lab. When you get to the water lab, they'll have you fill out some papers, pay the cost for the sample, and then the next day you will have an answer.
They don't want you to do that on Friday, right?
No, ma'am. So they will only accept water samples Monday through Thursday because the test takes 24 hours. So someone has to be there to accept and then to verify the testing. So they will only accept water samples Monday through Thursday, normal weeks. Now, with 4th of July coming up, obviously no samples on Monday because we're off on Tuesday for 4th of July. So next week we're just going to have Wednesday and Thursday are the only 2 days we could do the samples. But then the next week we'll be back on normal schedule.
John, are we the only people the only community that does not have this vector program?
So no, ma'am. All of Randall County does not have a vector program. Timber Creek Canyon and Palisades do not have vector programs. Lake Tanglewood does have a vector control program, and the City of Canyon has a vector control. It is not, they primarily do adult deciding. There's not very much larvicide, and they did not have any type of surveillance setup. So the traps that they put up, that the Texas Department of State Health Services put out all over the county, then gave us an idea of where there's issues. The pools that popped up, Palisades, Lake Tanglewood, Spring Canyon, and so we wanted to get those hit first. I can tell you, I was with the health department when West Niles came through back in the early 2000s. And the first case that we had was in the Wolfland area. And so we went, and when we got the information that there was a positive pool in Wolfland, we went out there and we sprayed to try to knock it down. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. Make sure we can get the adult population cut down so it limits the chance of transmission to humans. Yes, ma'am?
Is all those procedures you said about treating the well, is that in that?
Yes, ma'am. It's all in our handouts. And so we have handouts and information sheets and water bottles for whoever would like that. We recommend that if you know your water well has been, if it's had flow water up to it, I would say immediately stop using it. Let's get it disinfected and then test it. But
so
there's
saying,
so many that live up higher that there's not an issue there.
You're saying if the flood water's got up to your,
Up to your water well.
okay.
Because obviously, the casing on a water well is like a straw, and it goes all the way down to the aquifer. So if it gets to that casing, it can just run straight down to the aquifer, and then the water's contaminated. And that's what the bleach it'll straighten that out.
I'm sure it says it in the pamphlet, but is there a recommended like frequency that we should be treating our wells?
Anytime your plumbing system is touched, so if you have a plumber come out and install a new kitchen faucet, you need to chlorinate your well. If you have a new water pump, you need chlorinate. I mean, anytime your system is opened up, because it's a closed system, so it's fine by itself if there's nothing affects it. But if a plumber comes out and replaces something and he didn't wash his hands, and so he's got fecal matter on his hands, and it rubs on the inside of your water supply line, then he hooks it up. That fecal matter there's nothing in the water to kill it, so it just grows. So, but anytime you have anything done to your water well, they pull it to put it in, put the well or the pump in deeper, or if they're replacing the pump, or there's so many things that they can do for water wells. Anytime something like that, or anytime you open up your plumbing system, it's a good idea to disinfect your water well.
So the only disinfectant you're looking at is chlorine as opposed to like iodine? We just say
Iodine is a good disinfectant, and it can be used in a food grade, in like a restaurant setting that's approved by the state for use as a disinfectant. But bleach is so much, we know it can be corrosive, but it is a very effective, inexpensive disinfection, and all of our records are based on using chlorine as that disinfectant. So not iodine.
Well, I mean, iodine is safe to ingest.
And you could do that. We just don't have any guidelines on what level you would need to get it to. The only information that we have is for chlorine.
Okay.
Does the UV filter get rid of the bacteria?
So a UV filter can. So if you have a UV light set up on your water system, then yes, that could, any water that passes through that UV light, then that can kill that. But if you have water areas that are not passing through that UV light, then you could have bacteria growing that you don't know about now. So UV disinfection is great, but usually it's a last. They use it as a point source right before you get the water. I don't know how yours is set up.
So I'm going to put a whole house on.
Okay. I mean, that is a good idea, but it would be good to disinfect your whole system. And if you've opened your system up to put in a UV filter, then you would want to disinfect it after you put it on there, then start the UV light and go from there. So the main thing is the City of Amarillo, through the Amarillo Area Public Health District, which the Village of Palisades is a member of the Amarillo Area Public Health District, we are here to help you, and we're going to do everything we can to keep the spread of disease in your community as very minimal. Okay?
Well, I appreciate you.
Not a problem. I'm glad I could help.
Well, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I've had a couple people concerned about respiratory problems in the spring last
So
night.
obviously, anytime you have any type of chemical, if you have any type of asthma or respiratory illness, it can accentuate it. It can, heighten some issues. Generally, though, unless you're just right out there and you're, I don't know how much. I never ran behind the DDT trucks when I was a kid, but I've seen pictures of children running behind the trucks, and that was, those people would be 75, 80 years old now, and they're still okay. So,
That's a matter of opinion.
They don't have mosquitoes.
But yeah, I mean, DDT was a very effective mosquito control agent, but it was too caustic for us to use anymore. Now we don't use it anymore. We don't, the chemical that we buy is made from Clark. So Clark is one of the world leaders in mosquito control, and we use a product called Mosquito Master. It is a mixture of an organophosphate and a permethrin mixed together. So you've got two forms of agents going out in water droplets. And so those water droplets are atomized by our ULV foggers, and it just lets it drift. And then if the droplet lands on a mosquito or lands on a leaf, and then the mosquito comes and lands on it, then it will kill that mosquito. So that's what we're trying to do, is kill those adults. But if we can kill them in the water as larvae, we get a whole lot more bang for our buck, kill them in the water. Because just a little bit of chemical in the water will kill hundreds. So, I think I showed you this picture earlier today. We had just an example of a dipper that we found in mosquito larvae. So that's what we're looking for in the water, is a mosquito larva.
That's all water.
And they're little bitty, you know. So anybody like to look at that? It's just, you know, they're just little and they go through different instars, so they grow and they shed and they grow.
Brittany, you're a nurse.
We use those for
Well, the thing is,
we use those things on wounds.
you know, check your water bowl, your animal water bowls. Check your bird baths, any kind of standing water that you have, tires, things like that. If you see larvae, all you've got to do is turn it over. And the ground's going to absorb that, and then the mosquito larva will die. And so you've been an effective mosquito killer.
So y'all need to come, my understanding, y'all need to come down and spray the creek itself, because
No, sir.
it's not standing water.
Right.
And then second, on the spray itself, it's gonna affect a few insects, but not all of our.
And we don't hit. I mean, if we were out there with gallons of it, you know, discharging gallons at one time, but we're doing a medium rate. So as far as pesticide application, the label is the law. So we have a label from the EPA that tells us exactly how we can use this product. We have license. We're licensed non-commercial pesticide applicators. And so we follow the label. If the label says do not spray within 75 feet of water, we don't do that. Okay? So that's how we've always treated it. The label's the law. We go by the label because we want to keep our licenses.
So what about our wildlife out here?
So it's not going to affect your deer or turkeys or things. The ingredient is going to go after the mosquitoes, midges, things like that. Yes, it can kill bees, but bees sleep in the hive during the night. We're not spraying during the day. We spray at night. So
What about the pollen in the flowers after you spray when they come out?
there's not going to be enough on them to affect the bees.
Okay.
Cause y'all use this in the city limits, of course, right?
Yes, I mean we
So
use.
if y'all use this in the city limits all the time, it's like multiple occasions, there's multiple beehives and other insects,
And
but
so
like we wouldn't have any bees.
That's
if y'all
right.
using this.
And I've been with the health department since 2001, and we have been actively spraying some type of chemical for adult mosquitoes in Amarillo for 22 years. And so, you know, we're looking at different things. We have a new supervisor that's over the vector program, and he is looking at changing the type of chemical. We used to only use a synthetic pyrethroid with a synergizer. We used it for 15 years. Well, we're starting to see that it's not as effective as it used to be. The mosquitoes are building some resistance. That's the reason we've moved into this new product, Mosquito Master. It's something that they haven't ever seen before. So all the information we're getting so far, we're getting a good kill rate with it.
When are you guys looking at doing individuals' properties? Or is that still on the table, or?
We are hoping that the citizens take care of the property themselves. We're able to go down through the streets or alleys, things of that nature, with our vehicles. These are all ULV truck mounted equipment. We do have some, what I call them ATVs, but they're just John Deere Gator things that we drive around, and we use those for larviciting. But generally on your property, we need you to assist us getting rid of any standing water on the property. Just, dump the bird bath, and by all means refill it. The birds need the water too, but just every couple of days dump it. And then that way there won't be a chance of you having mosquito larvae in your water.
So how would we identify the areas on our properties that need to be sprayed? Like how do
So if you
spray?
have areas of your yard that has standing water, and standing water can be just that much. And so if you have high grass and standing water, you can grow mosquitoes in there. So any areas, keep your yard cut, because obviously the shorter the grass, the better evapotranspiration you're going to get. The wind blowing across is going to dry that ground out. The plants are going to absorb the water, and that way you won't have any standing. So check your site, and if you see that, if you have to get a weed eater out there and cut it down short so it dries out. But any water that's going to stand for more than 2 days, you're having a chance of growing your own mosquitoes.
It is so hot or
So,
your voice is gone. Pretty low, right?
So if we own property up against a creek, I know you said that you don't spray that body of water, but since water moves so slow right up against the bank.
So generally, in most cases, anytime you have water that is deeper than, the creek is what? I don't even know, 15, 20 foot deep?
Some areas, some areas,
So anytime you've got a deep body of water with sharp slope edges, you're not going to get any mosquito development because there's no shelter. When a mosquito develops, they have to develop and they have to have food to eat, so they're eating all this organic matter. But then they pupate. And when they pupate, we call that a pupa or wiggler. And so when they come off, when they hatch out from that pupa, they have to actually come out of that pupa case and they stand on the water so that their bodies then can harden, so their exoskeleton can harden so they can take and fly away. Well, if that body of water's got any movement, it's ripples or something, they can't stand the surface tension's not there and they'll drown. So usually, anytime you have deep water that's got a sharp slope, you're not going to get that growth. So,
Like in our horse tank.
horse tank's something you need to look at. Because a horse tank, so obviously, mosquitoes are, some mosquitoes just lay their eggs on top of the water. Other mosquitoes go out and find a muddy area and they lay it in the mud. Container breeders, what they do is, the water was up to right here last year, and so they lay their eggs just right up here. Well, if you get a flood event and the water gets above that, then all those eggs hatch out. So that's the reason we say tip and toss. If you have a container that's got water in it, there's chances that there's eggs laid on the edge. And if the water level gets up to those eggs, it will hatch out.
So if you bleach your well and fill your horse tank, will that chlorine kill those eggs?
No, ma'am, it will not.
So, adding water to it daily, with the movement, does that make any difference? Probably not.
So the thing is, if you've got a body of water that's just sitting there, it's not moving, and it's there for more than 20 or 48 hours, there is a chance that those eggs are going to hatch out into larvae, and then you're going to be able to see those larvae. And that's something else. You can go out there. I had my brother-in-law that was in Dallas, and he thought it was fun to get him a big kiddie pool for his dog. The dog's got to cool off too. Well, we went out in the backyard, and in that little 5-foot kiddie pool, it was almost solid black with mosquito larvae. And I said, "You just like growing your own mosquitoes?" He goes, No, what are you talking about? And when I showed him, he goes, "Oh no," dumped it over, and that killed him.
So eggs to larva to mosquito, adult mosquito is what's the time frame?
Anywhere from 72 hours to 5 days. In the when they first start in the early summer, it could be 5 to 8 days. In the heat of the summer, we can have mosquitoes out in 3 to 4 days.
Wow. So is this like this body of water that's here, north of here, is that being treated? Like there's a huge body, I mean.
Timber Creek?
Down there,
No,
like,
that's why.
where the horses and stuff are.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's from Palisades.
Okay. We are, obviously Judge Dyer with Randall County. She is trying to get state assistance, and so we would treat some of the plight lakes. What we wanted to hit first was our communities, hit the villages, yourself, Lake Tanglewood, Timber Creek, City Canyon, areas around there, and then we'll have to start moving out into the county. So we may not be treating it now, but we may get it next week.
We'll talk about put out some larvae. I think we put out some larvae.
Is there a chemical that they can use in their horse tanks?
They do make some, what they call mosquito donuts, or mosquito dumps. And so what it is, it's a biological agent. And so you throw that in there, and it can just sit there and it releases that bacteria. Well, then the mosquito decides to eat that bacteria to grow. Well, it goes in their gut and it messes up, and so they're not able to grow from that fourth instar to a pupa. Or if it doesn't allow it to grow, then their gut ruptures when they come out as an adult. And so the mosquito dumps are very effective, and they are a natural BTI, Bacillus thuringiensis, I can't hardly say it, but there's different types of the bacteria that is, just throw it in there. So you can do it. You can get those at any Home Depot, Lowe's, any home improvement,
And that's not
Walmart
gonna
probably
affect
has it.
your horses or cow or whatever?
No, man, you would be able to read the package, and it should say on there, if there's any issues with equine or bovine, it would say on the package.
And it's called mosquito what?
Mosquito dumps, dumps or donuts. So, I don't know exactly how much chemical we put out today doing larviciding, but we have a liquid larvicide that we spray in the water. We have granular larvicide. We have some of they're briquettes. It's a concentrated, like a 30-day pellet we can throw in the water. So I don't know what all they use today in this area, but I know that we've treated everything for larvicide that had any standing water.
Are you guys coming back?
We will come back, but we'll be next week after the holiday. So we wanted to get y'all before the holiday. That was what the push was. With the long weekend and all the outdoor activities and stuff, we wanted to make sure that we could get prevention as fast as we could. And your mayor was able to sign that mutual aid agreement and let us do it.
And then after that, y'all have like a schedule that y'all are putting
So
up?
that's a lot of it's going to depend on whether or not we can get some state funding to assist. Obviously, the mutual aid agreement lets us come in here, but then we do have to pay for our time, chemicals, things of that nature. So at some point, we're going to have a bill that we're going to have to send to you. Maybe the state will help with some of that. That'd be great. But we want to help first, and we'll worry about that later. But we will come back in and do additional treatment if necessary.
So is there going to be somebody collecting samples?
Yes, ma'am. We are actually putting out. So the state of Texas, through the state health service, came in and did traps. They're going to be pulling theirs out and leave pretty quick. We're going to come in and put some in ourselves, since we know where they put theirs. Try to keep that information going, and then we'll use the information. We will come out and collect those mosquitoes, and what we do is we ship them to Austin. So we have to package them all up in a cooler and ship them to Austin. And then in Austin, the lab then will go through and identify the different types of mosquitoes that you've got, and whether or not they have any West Niles or any type of encephalitis in their pool. And if they do, then we find out The lab tells us which samples came back positive for any illness, and then we would go and try to get it before it's passed to humans.
Okay. And do those results go to our mayor?
I'm sorry?
Do those results go to our mayor?
We can get them. Generally, it all comes through our office, through Anthony Spinell, the director, and through Zach Badrow, our vector supervisor. If y'all would like us to get that information to you, we can let our director know, and he can pass that information on.
Might be helpful, just
Sure.
for those of us who do the outdoor kids and stuff.
Yep. That's it. So,
Will this fogging do anything about the gnats? Those little-
not generally. Not generally. I mean, you may have a little bit, but not. It's really pointed at. I mean, the chemical is set up to kill the mosquitoes.
So maybe it's gonna be addressed later or whatever, but, so it's 4th of July weekend, or no kids are going in the water, or down at the crossing, or, you know, is that what y'all are recommending?
So that's a different scenario. So Judge Dyer did request, and Dishes sent up information, and so we actually went out and took some environmental water samples. Now, I heard from somebody that a state agency came out and took some water samples, but I didn't see that. But my office went out. We had 4 different crews, and we went out and collected over 20 different locations, environmental samples, and took them back to the City of Amarillo lab. Our city lab is not accredited to do the testing. They can do it, they're just not an accredited lab. So we can't release our results from our city lab. So we did the testing, we got the results, and the areas that were fairly low, we went ahead and went back, got another sample, and we sent those to Lubbock to an accredited lab to get legitimate information so that we can publish that and let everybody know. There are some spots that do have heavy contaminant loading. We've done additional testing to run it through the city, and we're trying to figure out why those areas have that high organic load. You know, could it be it's too close to a cattle yard and you're getting a lot of manure runoff? I know there was a lot of worry years ago. I mean, why did we close down Buffalo Lake to begin with? Well, the feedlots in Hereford were having a lot of runoff to that lake, and that lake got contaminated over the years. I personally went to Buffalo Lake and collected samples. So I had to put on waders and walk out into the water and got the water sample, and then we took it back to the lab to get it tested. Ironically, Buffalo Lake was one of the lower areas. So just anytime you've got a major flood event like this, it disrupts everything. All the runoff. Our ground was so saturated already, and then we had more rain, and it turned directly to runoff. And our area's just not built for it, you know. I mean, if this was Houston or something, I grew up in Houston. They have bayous that are 120 foot wide. You know, they're designed to carry that kind of water, but we don't have that up here.
So it's not safe to get in?
I would not get into the water right now, no, because of the high organic loading. You know, later on as we get more definitive tests, and we are testing, we are going to do additional testing next week and send it back off to Lubbock, and then we would be able to get that information to y'all from that accredited lab. We just can't release our results from our lab because it's not accredited.
Will they continue to pump Buffalo Lake because it's dry again, or will they?
That I don't
What
know. I
happened
mean, obviously Buffalo Lake is a U.S. park, so it's a federal. You know, there was a lot of talk about, we want to get aerial spraying into Randall County. We want to spray everything with an aerial. You know, and that's extremely expensive. You can get, you know, they've used it in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth like that, where you have a hurricane go through and the whole area is inundated. But it's so expensive and it's not that efficient. The other thing is you cannot spray on federal land. It's against the law. So all the buffalo wildlife, that whole area, we couldn't spray it. You can't spray agricultural areas. How much of Randall County is agriculture? So we're limited. That's the reason our truck mounted ULVs are the best thing we've got. So,
Well, Bo, you're not gonna ask it, I'm gonna ask about the fish.
okay.
The fake fish. I figured you would
So-
ask that.
No, I know.
Yeah, so the product that we have can affect fish. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
no problem.
It can. It can, but it would be more of a situation where if we were driving down the edge of the creek and our ATV flipped over and we had the whole tank of pesticide dump into the creek. Okay? One, the label tells us how far we have to be away from the creek to spray. And we stick to the label because the label is the law. So we follow the label on the pesticide application, and if we follow the label, then it should not harm fish.
Did y'all get down to the creek anywhere?
Not in our adult deciding, no. The larviciding, I don't think they got close to the creek, but I don't have that report yet.
John, what about the fish, fishing for fish, to catch, to eat fish, what about if we try
So I gotta throw this at you, folks. You know that Lake Tanglewood stays at a constant level now because of one reason.
Treated water from Amarillo.
So the city of Amarillo is kind of like Fort Worth. You know, everybody says, flush twice, Dallas needs the water. Well, our wastewater treatment plant is treating sewage from the city of Amarillo. Then it's disinfecting it, and then we are dechlorinating it, and then we're releasing it into Lake Tanglewood. So Lake Tanglewood is the water level is reclaimed water. For years, for years I heard you don't eat fish from Lake Tanglewood. I mean, I heard that. I've never fished in Lake Tanglewood. I know my father-in-law, when he said when he was a young kid, he used to come down to Lake Stockton Fishing Village, right here. I don't know what cabin he was in, but he was down there. But that was back in the 30s and 40s. So it's not a good idea with a high organic load in the water to eat the fish right now.
But fish you can catch and release.
Yes, by all means, enjoy the activity. Just don't, you know.
Don't go swimming in it, but sit on the edge and fish.
So you said there's probably a bill coming in the future. Do we have about an average of
So
how much that's
what
gonna?
we're looking at, obviously, we're keeping records of our time, our employees' time, and the cost of the chemicals that we're using to come down here and spray. If we can get some state assistance that can cover some of that expense, that's what we're going to do. But the mutual aid agreement, he gave us the ability to come in and help, and then reimbursement would be after the fact. That's going to be strictly up to the city of Amarillo leaders to make that decision.
And this is being pushed by Judge Dyer, like, hey,
Well, I mean, obviously, when Judge Dyer found out through the surveillance of the mosquito traps that we had positive West Nile virus, and she knew what danger it could be. I personally know 3 or 4 people that had passed away from West Nile virus. You know, it is a bad encephalitis.
But would it have been a good idea for us not to enter into this mutual aid agreement and just say, we don't want your help because we know it's gonna cost money?
That would have been, you know, the thing is, you have to look at the public health consequences of your citizens.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, one person passing away or getting a severe illness from West Nile virus, it's not worth it.
Right.
And we have elderly people around.
A lot of
More kids down here than we had. There's a lot.
And, you know, so most people, when they get West Nile virus, it's kind of like the COVID stuff. It was just like a cold, okay? But then in some people, it turns into a severe illness, and it can cause death. So Judge Dyer wanted us to do everything we could to try to remediate the mosquito population that has this poop. So that's what we've done, and we will stay on top of it through surveillance, and if we need to treat again, we will.
And they've been spraying the Timber Creek or Tanglewood as well, correct?
So Lake Tanglewood is spraying themselves. They have their own vector program. At this time, Timber Creek did not want us to come in and do anything. So,
Wow. But we're getting water from Timber Creek.
That's right.
but like the thing is, your water, the body of water, it flows through there, but you've got runoff from the properties. But like I said, you generally don't have mosquito larvae growing in the creek. It's more up on the properties, things of that nature. As the creek overflowed and then spilled out, and there was areas on the side that stayed with standing water after the water receded, those are the areas the mosquitoes are going to be growing in, not the creek.
What was their reasoning for refusing your services?
I do not know. I was not in that meeting. I just know that my director said that Timber Creek chose not to sign mutual aid at this time. So we will go down there and talk to them again, and if they change their mind, we'll get in there.
Well, did they have positive West Nile in Timber Creek?
I believe they did, yes. I know that Lake Tanglewood and Palisades did. I don't know definitely the Timber Creek, but it's so close. To me, it's all the same. So you have to understand that the birds are where the disease is coming from. Birds are the natural reservoir of West Nile virus. And when it came into the United States back in 2005, 2004, you could see it. It started on the East Coast and it went from north to south. And then the next year it moved over several hundred miles and went from north to south. It was the bird migration that spread the disease over the United States. It's in the bird population. So as the mosquito population is increased and they bite the birds, because a female mosquito has to have a blood meal to then be able to have eggs and raise young. So that's the female mosquitoes are the ones that bite us. The guys just sit over there and they suck on plant juice. So the whole thing is the birds are the reservoir, and they're always going to be the reservoir. All of the birds, they don't see a city limit sign. They fly from Timber Creek to here, from here to there. So we've got to knock the mosquito population down to keep that transmission down. And because right now it's just birds to mosquitoes. So anyway, please everybody grab some material before you leave, and grab you a water sample bottle if you're interested. Check your water supply. Make sure that it's safe so you can continue to use it. Here's some of my cards. Thank you.